reading from the Kybalion, which is a teaching on universal principles and laws. Rhythm. So here's the axiom. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. Hello, B-side. So I want to begin by looking up the word compensates. Rhythm compensates. The definition of compensate: to make up for a loss, a bad effect. It brings things back to a fair balance. Rhythm brings things back into a fair balance. That makes sense. When we think about a pendulum swinging, the axiom is saying when the pendulum swings to the left, it's going to swing to the right to the same degree. And in this way, rhythm brings back fair balance. We're going to learn in the principle of rhythm that we can roll with the rhythm by using the principles of polarity and vibration, and therefore the pendulum doesn't have to swing as far, and we can always swing it ourselves. Okay, so that's the idea. So let's go ahead and begin the reading. The great fifth Hermetic principle, the principle of rhythm, embodies the truth that in everything there is manifested a measured motion. In everything there is manifested a measured motion. I'm going to say that one more time. In everything there is a measured motion. In everything. There's a to and from movement. There's a flow and an inflow. A swing forward and a swing backward. A pendulum-like movement, a tide-like ebb and flow, a high tide and a low tide. Between the two poles manifest on the physical, mental, or spiritual planes. Okay, so if everything has poles, everything is dual. Remember that, hey Callie? If everything is dual, everything has poles, then the pendulum can swing to one pole and the other. There's an inflow and an outflow. The principle of rhythm is closely connected with the principle of polarity described in the preceding chapter. Rhythm manifests between two poles established by the principle of polarity. This does not mean, however, that the pendulum of rhythm swings to the extreme poles, for this rarely happens. In fact, it is difficult to establish the extreme polar opposites in the majority of cases, but the swing is ever toward one pole and then the other. There is always an action and reaction, and an advance and a retreat, a rising and a sinking, manifested in all the airs and phenomena of the universe. Suns, worlds, men, animals, plants, minerals, forces, energy, mind, and matter. Yes, even spirit manifests this principle. The principle manifests in the creation and destruction of worlds, in the rise and fall of nations, in the life history of all things, and finally in the mental states of man. So far, so good. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. If it isn't, I will explain. And if we know that everything has a rise and a fall, an ebb and a flow, etc., then we could get comfortable understanding that nothing is going to stay the same. Okay? That's not the way this life is designed. It's not designed for us to experience a consistent state forever. We will experience fluctuations, always, beginning with the manifestations of spirit, the all, capital letters. It will be noticed that there is ever the outpouring and indrawing. the out breathing and the in breathing. As the Brahmins worded, universes are created, reach their extreme low point of materiality, and then begin their upward swing. Suns spring into being, and then their height of power being reached, the process of retrogression begins. And after the eons, they become dead masses of matter, awaiting another impulse, which starts again their inner energies into activity, and a new solar life cycle has begun. We can see the principle of rhythm happening everywhere, right? There's a celebrity that rises to fame, and then they drop out of awareness. We can see this in our relationships, where sometimes there's these periods of intense closeness, and then there's some periods that don't feel as close. We know that business has a high tide and an ebb. We can see in the seasons there's a flow. There's a flow even in our own sense of internal rhythm throughout the days, throughout the weeks, throughout the months, throughout the years, throughout a lifetime. So if we know that a hard time is here, then we also understand that the hard time is not going to last always. And in your relationship, if you know you're experiencing a real high time, enjoy it. Don't be fearful that it's going to go away, but understand if the tide shifts, and that doesn't mean a negative turn, that just means a variation. That doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong. Kim, you say, yes, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to continue. And thus it is with all the worlds. They are born, grow, and die, only to be reborn. And thus it is with all the things of shape and form. They swing from action to reaction, from birth to death, from activity to inactivity, and then back again. Thus it is with all living things. They are born, grow, and die, and they are reborn. So it is with all great movements, philosophies, creeds, fashions, governments, nations, and all else: birth, growth, maturity, decadence, and death, and then new birth. The swing of the pendulum is ever in evidence. Night follows day, and day follows night. You know, there's a scripture that says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. It didn't mean literal mourning. It's the principle of rhythm. You're not going to be sad always. And I often remind myself of this when I'm going through a hard time. Things always take an upturn. So while I'm here, what do I need to be seeing? What do I need to be doing? What do I need to understand? What do I need to become more comfortable as I'm riding through this moment or this season, right? So the pendulum swings from summer to winter. I had to learn to acclimate myself to this particular rhythm from summer to winter. I used to despise winter. I used to love summer. You see that polarity, right? And therefore, when summer was leaving, I would get very sad. And upon the first temperature that felt too cold, I would be saying, I don't like winter. I hate the cold. Hey, 64, I don't like it. I don't like it. I was very polarized, and I was not enjoying that experience. And then last year, I said, I want to depolarize myself. I don't want to stay here because I'm not enjoying this. Every year, I go through the same pattern. I want to shift it. For the first year last year, I enjoyed the winter. Polarizing, when the principle of rhythm is in operation, can be to our detriment. It also could be to our benefit. Let's see. So one more thing I want to say before we move on. I don't think it's a wise idea to deny the pendulum swing, because that's akin to spiritual bypassing. The pendulum is swinging to the left or the right, and you're talking about, no, it's not. Yes, it is. You know, now, You can depolarize yourself, but we can still understand that the principle of rhythm is in operation. Both ends are valuable, right? So when we start discarding one for the other, we start limiting our own experience. And in that experience, we are limited and we cannot evolve, right? Okay. So the corpuscles, they're talking about electrons and such. Hey, Needy. Corpuscles, atoms, molecules, and all the masses of matter swing around the circle of their nature. There is no such thing as absolute rest or cessation from movement, and all the movement partakes in rhythm. This principle is of universal application. It may be applied to any question or phenomena of any of the many planes of life. So, again, these universal principles and laws are applicable on all the planes of life and phases of human activity. There is always the rhythmic swing from one pole to the other. The universal pendulum is ever in motion. The tides of life flow in and out according to law. Have you ever had something that you enjoyed so much? Right? You loved it, you moved in it, you cherished it, and then one day it wasn't that important anymore. The principle of rhythm. Nothing bad happened. You didn't have a bad experience. You just noticed that there was a rise and a swell. We gotta get used to that. Sometimes we make it a problem. We say, I used to enjoy that. And you keep trying to jumpstart it again, and it doesn't jumpstart. Perhaps it was part of the principle of rhythm. You got to ask, right? Tip, how you doing? Has anyone experienced that? I know I have. And then sometimes it flows in and out of season, right? So I have learned through social media memories that I'm often on similar topics at the same time each year. But I've noticed also that with each topic, I go deeper and deeper. I've noticed that as well. And so I might be super passionate about a topic in the spring. By the wintertime, I'm not talking about it again. But when the spring comes up, I'm back at it. The shifts. And we have to understand that shifts are natural. Okay? People flow in, people flow out. Even when you think about dating, I've experienced times where so many people were interested in connecting. And then I experienced times where there was no one interested. Sometimes I shifted the rhythm myself. You can shift the rhythm also. I'm just trying to help us apply and see where the principle of rhythm operates. Can you name another situation where you have experienced the principle of rhythm? And I'm not talking about something you did because you were hurt or something you did because you were intentional about it. I mean, it happened naturally. You weren't even trying, it just happened naturally. I can go on spurts where I eat the same food for a long time. Oi. And then I just don't want it anymore. And then I start wanting it again. There are times where I feel super creative and I'm painting, painting, painting. And then I feel creative in other areas. So then I shift away from painting and then I go back, right? The principle of rhythm. So as a creative, you do that with food. So as a creative, sometimes you're not even in a creative block. I would even venture to say I'm a creative. I would even venture to say that we're hardly ever in a creative block. I think the principle of rhythm is operating. Just a thought. I'm not saying blocks are not real, but I'm saying sometimes we're trying to jumpstart something and it's not the season, it's not the time. But we think because we want it, it should be happening. Remember, we talked about the last few days the law of attraction, right? You can keep jumping on the law of attraction bandwagon, right? But if it's not the rhythm of the divine timing, then it may not come. But it comes later. Maybe it doesn't come right away, but it comes later, right? And so that doesn't mean stop wanting it. That means keep desiring it. Don't go into lack about it. Don't go into limitation about it. Don't go into some falsity about it. So, for example, maybe you're an artist and you like to draw, but lately you have been experiencing no desire to draw, right? And you keep trying to find a motivation and you don't find it. How about you ask, what else wants to be experienced through me at this time, rather than focusing on the thing that is not available to you? There was a time where I wanted to lose weight. So I walked every night or almost every night for a whole year at 8:30 p.m. on the treadmill. It wasn't time for me to go to the gym and participate in classes. It wasn't for me to do a whole lot of things. It was for me to do that. And that was developing the discipline that I needed in the next season, because the very next year I was in group fitness and studying to be a personal trainer. So while I was thinking to myself, I'm not losing weight, I should be doing more, I just don't want to, the thing that I was doing was in rhythm. It was the season to do that, to develop discipline, not lose weight. Sometimes we operate out of season as well. Now back into it, right? So I'm not saying your everybody's situation is the same. I am saying ask yourself, is the principle of rhythm operating? Is there an ebb and a flow, a rise and a fall, right? A pendulum swing to the left and to the right, is there? All right. So the universal pendulum is ever in motion. That's what it says here. It's never not swinging. The tides of life flow in and out according to law. This even happens in business. And I've told this story before. As an entrepreneur, I used to fear low season. I just feared it like nobody's business, because I would have this high and then I would be like, oh my God, what am I going to do when the season shifts? Because in fitness, it does. I've learned to flow with that rhythm. So instead of fretting through the low season, I go into different veins of creation. I may write a book. I may put a course out. I may start a community. Thank you. I may rest. I may take time for reflection. I may study. I may go deeper into my spirituality. But I've learned that there's an ebb and a flow. So during the low season, maybe I scale back. Maybe I become more inward. That does happen. So I've learned to move beyond the fear by understanding that the pendulum always is going to swing back in my favor. Okay. And sometimes I get really motivated to write, and then the season shifts. So I just wait for the next season. I'm never really sitting there trying to beat myself into it. I'm learning. Okay. So here, the principle of rhythm is well understood by modern science and is considered a universal law as applied to material things. You switch things up often, yes. The Hermetists carry the principle much further and know that its manifestations and influence extend to the mental activities of man, and that it accounts for the bewildering succession of moods, feelings, and other annoying and perplexing things that we notice within ourselves. Let's talk about that. Hey, Penny. The principle of rhythm is operating in our moods. You know, we have rhythms in our bodies, not only the menstrual cycle. We have circadian rhythms. We have all kinds of rhythms. Your heart beat has a rhythm. You have a rhythmic breathing, right? You have a rhythm in the morning, a natural flow of energy, all kinds of things. The principles of vibrations are operate, not the principles of vibrations. The principle of vibration is in operation in every plane. So if you know, for example, okay, I was feeling happy. Now I'm not. Am I going to fret and be like, oh, I was so happy. I was so happy. What happened? Not anymore, but at one time in my life, yet, yes. I realize that this rhythm is a part of life. And when I come into those spaces that are not so high, it's an opportunity for me to see, to reflect, to evolve. I don't always like it. I don't always appreciate it, but I'm growing to have more and more appreciation for the moments like what I just mentioned, right? Sometimes it's about saying, I feel this way, and right now I need to be within to think about it, to look at it, to feel into it. I need to process it. I need to see if it's something within me or something in the atmosphere, as opposed to just trying to get out of it. Now, sometimes you do need to get out of a feeling because you have things to do, but I'm talking about overall, understand that your mood shift by design, okay? The Hermetists, by studying the operations of this principle, have learned to escape some of its activities by transmutation. So now we're going to start seeing how to use this principle in transmutation. The Hermetic masters long since discovered that while the principle of rhythm was invariable and ever in evidence in mental phenomena, still there were two planes of its manifestation so far as mental phenomena are concerned. They have discovered that there were two general planes of consciousness, the lower and the higher, the understanding of which fact enabled them to rise to the higher plane and thus escape the swing of the rhythmic pendulum which manifested on the lower plane. In other words, the swing of the pendulum occurred on the unconscious plane, and the consciousness was not affected. This they call the law of neutralization. There's another law. The law of neutralization. While, in other words, the principle of rhythm is carrying on in the undercurrent behind the veil, but in your consciousness, you are not being whipped to and fro by it, even though it is going on. Does that make sense? So now we have the law of neutralization. Let's read about that. Remember, I was saying there's so much more than the law of attraction, right? Because while you're in the law of attraction, there's the law of repulsion, right? And while you're there, you get polarized sometimes, don't you? So the law of neutralization will help you, and probably does help you if you have learned to shift your states of being and not be whipped about by the states of being, okay? This is called the law of neutralization. Its operations consist in the raising of the ego above the vibrations of the unconscious plane of mental activity, so that the negative swing of the pendulum is not manifested in consciousness, and therefore they are not affected. This is not positive thinking. This is dwelling on two realms, the consciousness and the unconscious. Did y'all get that? So let me read it one more time. The law of neutralization, its operations consist in the raising of the ego. Let's just stop right there. The raising of the ego, sitting in the ego, being pushed along by the ego, drawn by the ego, governed by the ego. I'm just asking, what did it say? Because we've been talking about this ego through all of these principles. So now you see, you can be trying to operate within the law of attraction while your ego is not raised. Raise the ego. The principle of neutralization involves raising the ego and operating on the conscious and the unconscious level. Now, remember, this vibration went raise, R-A-I-S-E, raise, R-A-I-S-E, raise, as in rise. Increase the vibration. when we sit on the egoic plane, the ego, right, is the part of us that is concerned with how people see us, is concerned with right or wrong, is concerned with duality, good, bad, right, wrong, um, just, evil, love, hate, all of these distinctions. It's concerned about contracting and holding space as a unique entity. The ego is where you begin to move into fear because it doesn't give you a construct to face the unknown. The ego is not conscious. So it doesn't know that what you're hearing is true. It doesn't know that it's not true. The ego is associated with your conditioning, with your mind. It doesn't know the things of the divine. It doesn't vibrate on that plane. The ego has a vibration. And if you think about people who are very staunch and very idealistic, you can feel how they vibrate. It feels egoic. The plane of the ego is where power struggles begin, offense and defense. It's egoic in nature. The principle, let's read it. The law of neutralization, rather. Let's read it again. The law of neutralization, its operations consist in raising of the ego above the vibrations of the unconscious plane of mental activity. So you have to raise yourself above your unconscious. This is why we need other people as mirrors, because if you don't have a mirror, a reflection, you do not know that there are variations and differences. You can't expand without reflection and introspection. So whoever and whatever is in front of you causing you to contract is showing you what's in your unconscious. And the task is to raise your ego above it. Okay? Raise your ego above the vibrations of the unconscious plane of mental activity so that the negative swing of the pendulum is not manifested in the consciousness and therefore they are not affected. It is akin to rising above a thing and letting it pass beneath you. In capoeira, we have this move called negasa. And negasa happens when there is an oncoming attack. So you don't meet the oncoming attack with force. You go under the attack and you move with it. So if the attack is coming this way, you don't go that way. You actually move with it. That's what happens when you operate in the principle of neutralization. You're not trying to convince yourself that you believe something that you don't. You're not trying to be the bigger person or take the higher horse. That's still egoic. You masterfully say with intention, I'm going to apply the law of neutralization and raise my ego above the unconscious plane by making what is unconscious conscious and shifting within that, not sitting in my ego, not sitting in offense, not sitting in resentment or bitterness. The Hermetic master or advanced student polarizes himself at the desired pole. And by a process akin to refusing to participate in the backward swing, or if you prefer, the denial. Nagasa means denial. The attack is coming this way. No, thank you. It's not defense, brace, flex against it. It's not attack back. It's a denial. No, thank you. No. And it's literally a movement like that. It says the Hermetic master or advanced student polarizes himself, not sits there and fusses about it, not sits there and draws stubborn lines in the sand. I'm my person. I am like this and nobody can stop me. I'm. That's the ego. That's what it feels like. But Nagasa doesn't feel like that. The denial doesn't feel like that. It feels like I'm not invested. That's the manifestation for me. This is true, right? Oh, don't make me angry. You won't like it when I'm angry by saying I'm not what I really am. That's the ego, right? The Hermetic master or advanced student polarizes himself at the desired pole, and by a process akin to refusing to participate in the backward swing, or if you prefer, the denial of its influence over him. This is not denial as in, that's not bothering me, and it really is. It's not denial like that. It's allowing, like they said, raising yourself up and letting it pass under. Or the attack is coming and you deny it. You flow with it, you don't rise up against it. Do you know that you don't have to attack everything that is coming against you? Do you know that you don't have to set a boundary against everything that's coming against you? This is where you learn what the soft life really is, because you begin to see there's a whole lot else that you can apply other than boundaries. But remember, we read before that a lot of these frequencies are not available to the average person. So when you get the collective talking about something, about the same thing, and they're all saying it the same way, that's the average person. And the average person doesn't know that there's more. The average person only knows, I'm going to set my boundaries. You're not going to talk to me. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. You're not bracing. It's hard. And I'm not saying you don't need boundaries. I'm saying there are other tools. Let's continue. He stands firm in his polarized position and allows the mental pendulum to swing back along the unconscious plane. All individuals who have attained any degree of self-mastery accomplishes this, more or less unknowingly, and by refusing to allow their moods and negative mental states to affect them, they apply the law of neutralization. The master, however, carries this to a much higher degree. Okay, so they're saying most people can at some point polarize themselves, but we're going beyond that, right? This is about the going further. That's what these teachings say. We're going to take it beyond even that. He carries this, that man student, to a much higher degree of proficiency. And by use of his will, he attains a degree of poise and mental firmness, almost impossible of belief on the part of those who allow themselves to be swung backward and forward by the mental pendulum of moods and feelings. And so it's saying that the result here of masterfully applying the law of neutralization is this is something far different than the average person who just goes to and fro. They feel this, they don't want to do this now. They feel that, they don't want to do that now. They were happy about doing this. Now because they feel this, they don't want to. Or now because this has happened, they're demotivated. Or because that has happened, they are no longer encouraged. There's a certain poise, it says, and mental firmness that even though right now I'm not feeling good, and I was feeling good about this yesterday, I understand that this happens. So I'm determined to finish this, whatever this is. I'm determined to achieve this, whatever this is. And so I'm going to polarize myself. Even though my mood is here, I'm not going to allow it to discourage me. I'm still going to meet my goal. Yes? Does that make sense? This is different from those who just let their moods swing them all in all different directions. The importance of this will be appreciated by any thinking person who realizes what creatures of moods, feelings, and emotion the majority of people are. Let me read that again. The importance of this will be appreciated by any thinking person who realizes what creature of moods, feelings, and emotions the majority of people are, and how little mastery of themselves they manifest. The Kybalion, hey. If you will stop and consider for a moment, you will realize how much these swings of rhythm have affected you in your life, and how a period of enthusiasm has been invariably followed by the opposite feeling and mood of depression. Likewise, your moods and periods of courage have been succeeded by equal moods of fear, and so it has ever been with the majority of persons. Tides of feeling have ever risen and fallen within them, but they have never suspected the cause or the reasons of the mental phenomena. An understanding of the workings of this principle will give one the key to the mastery of these rhythmic swings of feeling, and will enable him to know himself better, and to avoid being carried away by these inflows and outflows. Can we talk? There are a lot of people who identify as free spirits, and they use that when they do not have the ability to polarize themselves. I'm not saying everyone who is a free spirit does that, but there are definitely some. And this is up to all of us to examine ourselves. It's not for me to say, it's just for me to propose, and you examine yourself. Are you using the term free spirit as a crutch for low self-mastery, being tossed to and fro on emotions and moods and feelings, such that you get knocked off course? Something that was previously important to you is no longer important. I'm not talking about the rise and fall, the ebbs and flows. I'm talking about those situations where you feel very hype about something, but because something didn't go your way, you don't want to do it anymore. That's what I'm talking about. And then you say, well, I have to be free. But then you're not satisfied. Let's continue. An understanding of the workings of this principle will give one the key to mastery of these rhythmic swings of feeling, and will enable him to know himself better and avoid being carried away by these inflows and outflows. The will is superior. The will is superior to the conscious manifestations of this principle, although the principle itself can never be destroyed. The principle is in operation, no matter what, the ebbs and flows, the difference in the moods and feelings and mental phenomena. But it's saying your will is greater than this principle. So when you think you have to just get knocked to and fro, you really got to ask yourself, what is my true will? Because if your true will is not to keep going, then the principle will carry you along like a current. But if you have a will, then you can neutralize this in your consciousness. It says the will is superior to the conscious manifestation of this principle. We may escape its effects, but the principle still operates. There's still an ebb and a flow. So an example of this could be, remember I was telling you with business, I had to learn that there is an ebb and a flow. That is true. Okay. So some people can say that's not true. Don't claim that. Well, it's saying here that the law is operating no matter what, but I can polarize myself. I don't have to be tossed into flux when the ebb is coming. I can make a decision that I know the ebb is coming. And so I want to make sure that I fortify my cash flow, my income, so that I don't get tossed to and fro. You see, that's what it means by saying your will is superior to the conscious effect of this. The conscious effect is, oh my God, business is low. I see how this is going. There's still the ebb. I just polarize myself by creating other things that supplement during that time. Is this making sense? Some people will say, oh, well, there's an ebb and I just have to go along with it until the new season comes. And I did that before. And it was a hard way to go. There would be a low season and I would just be stressed out sometimes. So I decided that I have multiple streams of income. I'm going to put them into effect. I'm going to activate them. Let's continue. We may escape its effects, but the principle operates nevertheless. The pendulum ever swings, although we may escape being carried along with it. There are other features of the operation of this principle of rhythm, of which we wish to speak at this point. There comes into its operations that which is known as the law of compensation. So you just got two new laws, neutralization and compensation. Principles are the overarching lay of the land, and the laws are the individual ways the principle operates, and also tools. The law of compensation. One of the definitions or meanings of the word compensation or compensate is to counterbalance, which is the sense in which the Hermetists use the term. It is this law of compensation to which the Kybalion refers when it says, the measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. The law of compensation is that the swing in one direction determines the swing in the opposite direction, or to the opposite pole, the one that balances or counterbalances the other. On the physical plane, we see many examples of this law. The pendulum of the clock swings a certain distance to the right and then an equal distance to the left. The seasons balance each other in the same way. The tides follow the same law. And the same law is manifested in all the phenomena of rhythm. The pendulum with a short swing in one direction has but a short swing in the other, while the long swing to the right invariably means the long swing to the left. An object hurled upward to a certain height has an equal distance to traverse on its return. The force with which a projectile is sent upward a mile is reproduced when the projectile returns to Earth on its return journey. This law is constant on the physical plane, as reference to the standard authorities will show you. But the Hermetists will carry it still further. They teach that a man's mental states are subject to the same law. The man who enjoys keenly is subject to keen suffering, while he who feels but little pain is capable of feeling but little joy. The pig suffers but little mentally and enjoys but little. He is compensated. And on the other hand, there are animals who enjoy keenly, but whose nervous organism and temperament causes them to suffer exquisite degrees of pain. And so it is with man. There are temperaments which permit of but low degrees of enjoyment and equally low degrees of suffering, while there are others which permit the most intense enjoyment and also the most intense suffering. The rule is that the capacity for pain and pleasure in each individual are balanced. The law of compensation is in full operation, but the Hermetists go still further in this matter. They teach that before one is able to enjoy a certain degree of pleasure, he must have swung as far proportionately toward the other pole of feeling. They hold, however, that the negative is a precedent to the positive in this manner. That is to say, that in experiencing a certain degree of pleasure, it does not follow that he will have to pay up for it. That's important. With the corresponding degree of pain, that's not what it's saying. But on the contrary, the pleasure is the rhythmic swing according to the law of compensation for a degree of pain previously experienced in present life or in a previous incarnation. This throws a new light on the problem of pain. Can we talk about this? We're talking about the Hermetists. They're not the average person. We're talking about the student of Hermeticism. They're not the average person. Just because you experience intense joy doesn't mean the pendulum is going to have to swing to intense pain. That's not what it's saying. So a lot of people fear feeling really good because they don't want the fall or the drop. But that's not how it works. It says that the intense pleasure is the compensation for the pain, not the pain is the compensation for the pleasure. You see how we get it twisted? And we keep regurgitating things. They say, new levels, new devil. The Hermetists regard the chain of lives as continuous and as forming a part of one life of the individual, so that in the consequence, the rhythmic swing is understood in this way. While it would be without meaning unless the truth of reincarnation is admitted, but the Hermetists claim that the master or the advanced student is able to a great degree. It's telling you what you're able to do if you want to master this. You notice that it says the Hermetist, people who practice, and the advanced student. That's a person who studies and practices. This is not for the average person. So as you can imagine, let's say I never read this to you. And I walk up upon you and you're giving that regurgitation of, well, you know, if you love hard, you fall hard too. And I say, that's not true. Actually, the love hard, right, is the compensation for the falling hard. The pain precedes. The compensation is the pleasure. And you might start arguing with me and feel offended that I said, and you would draw from your mind situations where you felt intensely happy and then followed by intense depression, but you started from the wrong point. Really, it was the pain that you experienced that came first, and the pleasure compensated. So what is that saying? Tonight, if you are in an intense situation where it feels painful, where it feels hard, where you don't even know how you're going to come up out of this. I can remember when I was diagnosed in 2024, It felt like a cruel joke that I would have to learn how to live under the intense pressure of what I was being told about my body, still homeschool 4 children, one of which was about to enter into college, still run a business. And you, if you know me, you've been following me for a while. My business has a majority of streams. I mean, a variety of streams, which require me to be present, run a household, have my social interactions, at that time, a hard relationship. How am I supposed to do this? How? One of the things that came to me is, you see how dark this pit is? Rhythm compensates. So I was like, okay, so while I'm here, how do I move? Y'all know my prayer that I love. What do I need to see that I don't already see? And I saw some stuff that I didn't want to see, but I give thanks because the truth of it helped me vibrate into universal truth. What is it that I need to hear that I don't already hear? And I heard some things real different. I heard old things in new ways, and I heard new things. So, and I couldn't unhear them, and I couldn't unsee them. And I give thanks because it was setting me up for richness. I'm not telling you about a theory. I'm not telling you about simply something that I read. Mental transmutation is a part of my everyday experience. It's a part of my everyday practice. Because if I did not have that, then I would not still be here. If I did not have the ability to practice mental transmutation by these laws, I would not be here talking to you. I would not have recorded the podcast that I recorded. I did a series on living life while in a diagnosis, a life-threatening diagnosis. A lot of relationships fell away. A lot of places where I thought I was close, I realized it wasn't really that close. A lot of times I sat up by myself and was just like, what am I supposed to do with this? This can't be my life. But I remembered that rhythm compensates, and it did, and it does. Okay, so let's continue. And then I'm going to start wrapping this up. But the Hermetists claim that the master or advanced student is able to a great degree to escape the swing toward pain by the process of neutralization that we just mentioned. By rising onto the higher plane of the ego, much of the experience that comes to those dwelling on the lower plane is avoided and escaped. Remember, I was telling you about the Manomaya. If we look at the Manomaya as a stage or a level, there are many sub-levels, okay? So a low vibration of the ego is woe is me. I am nothing. I can't believe this is happening to me. Nobody loves me. God doesn't love me. Nobody wants me. I'll just lay down. I can't do this. That's the lower ego plane. And then there's a higher ego plane where you realize in consciousness that the law of neutralization and compensation can work to your benefit. So it's by rising to that higher egoic plane that you find a richness that the people on the lower plane don't have. And so some people I remember a client said to me, I had no clue you were going through all of this. And here I am sitting here talking about this and that, and you're going through, and I didn't even know. How were you able to do it? These principles, these laws. I hope that's encouraging to someone. The law of compensation plays an important part in the lives of men and women. It will be noticed that one generally pays the price of anything he possesses or lacks. If he has one thing, he lacks another, and balance is struck. No one can keep his penny and have the bit of cake at the same time. Everything has its pleasant and unpleasant sides. The things that one gains are always paid for by the things that one gives. The rich possesses much that the poor lacks, while the poor possesses things that are beyond the reach of the rich. The millionaire may have the inclination toward feasting and wealth, wherewith to secure all the dainties and luxuries of the table, while he lacks the appetite to enjoy the same. He envies the appetite and digestion of the laborer, who lacks the wealth and inclinations of the millionaire, and who gets more pleasure from his plain food than the millionaire could obtain, even if his appetite were not jaded, nor his digestion ruined, for the wants, habits, and inclinations differ. And so it is through life. The law of compensation is ever in operation, striving to balance and counterbalance, and always succeeding in time, even though several lives may be required for the return of the swing of the pendulum. What is that saying? It's saying that this law of compensation, this principle of rhythm, is keeping this world in balance. So you may think everybody needs to awaken. No, everybody does not need to awaken. The people who are at their point in life, it's time for them to awaken. Because if everybody awakened at the same time, this world would be thrown off balance. So when you want everyone to awaken, you want something that's against universal principles and laws. The people who are still here need to be here. Hey, focus. The people who need to be there need to still be there. And if you look at this as levels, there are constantly people moving up. Nobody should be where they're not, in other words. Everybody is where they're supposed to be. That means you are, and that means me too. Does that mean stay here? No, because we're talking about a movement. There's transcendence. There's the art of polarization in yourself. So should you be complacent and just be like, oh, I don't have that, but this is how it's supposed to be, and this is how I am, and I'm just like this, but you're not getting where you want to get. You got to stop making reasons for that, for not transcending. So here's a question. What are you being called to transcend? What do you know you need to transcend that you are still making reasons for? And I want to say excuses. I just don't like how that sounds. You set your identity somewhere low, and then you get attached to the identity. And you use that as a reason why you are where you are and how you need to be where you are. But that's not really the answer. Because the pendulum constantly swings to give you opportunities to shift. And if you don't raise up on the egoic realm into something other than the low vibration of attachment, you'll be staying in that loop for a little bit longer. And if you stay in the loop, then that's where you need to be, yes. But we're talking about people who are practitioners and people who want to grow and want to transcend. Then you should identify where you are and the loop that you're in and make steps to come out of it. Even though where you are supposed to be in this moment, that's not where you always need to be. And every time you experience discomfort in that area and your ego goes to protect it, so you stay right there, that's a sign that you need to raise your ego. It's a sign. The other day, Someone called me early in the morning and began to tell me of a dilemma of someone that they loved. Um, and I really didn't want to hear that early in the morning. But I decided to raise my ego and I asked myself, what information is this giving me about me? Okay, because this is a reflection. And I want to go beyond, hey Tanya, I want to go beyond my belief systems. I want to go beyond my thoughts, beyond my emotions. I want to hear the deep thing. So as I started listening, hey Pink, I started noticing that there's a pattern in me that travels in my family line. That recently, in recent years, I was making reasons for it. And when I listened to that, I said, this is a pattern. And I've heard myself operate within in this pattern recently. What if I didn't raise my ego to see the reflection? Am I saying you need to listen to things you don't want to hear? No. But I'm saying since you picked up the phone, even though you weren't expecting it, you should ask. Since I picked up the phone, I really ain't want to do that, and I slipped up because I was just waking up. My brain wasn't all the way there, because if my brain was all the way there, I probably would have waited and called them later. But I jumped up out of my sleep, picked up the phone, and then it started. So I had to bypass my ego of, it's too early for this. This is not how I want to wake up. I don't want to wake up to this. You hear that ego? I'm not saying it's bad because I recognize that I have a rhythm and it's not to put out fires in the morning. But I took a breath, created some emotional space, and did my prayer. What do I need to see here? About me, not about the person talking, and not about the person they're talking about. What do I need to see in me? And I saw the pattern and I said, time out. I'm done with that. I see it has traveled through my bloodline. It has ingrained itself into my unconscious. No, thank you. I deny that. No, thank you. I'm not saying it's not there. It's not a denial saying I'm not like that. No, I saw it in me. And then the denial was, nah, we about to move through this. I'm not going to keep it and say, I'm not like that because I do this. Nah, they do that. But I saw it. And some things you can't unsee. If you say that you want to evolve, you got to be ready for some radical honesty. But the thing is, we've been making reasons for so long. Oh, I don't need that. Oh, life is not about that. Life is about this. We will spiritualize a pattern. You know that, right? We will spiritualize a pattern. But then there comes a time where you say you want to shed, you want to ascend, you want to transcend, and you got to look at that reflection without shame and say, I'm done now. At some point, this was true. But now I see it as a pattern. Remember, there's absolute truth and there's relative truth. So at some point, this was a relative truth. But it's relative, meaning it's no longer applicable. Sometimes you make identities and you're so used to attaching and clinging to it that when the opportunities come, when the pendulum swings to give you the opportunity to release, you still hang on to it. So you loop. So I'm asking you, what loop are you coming out of? And you don't have to tell me because this is personal. We're almost done. We're almost done. It says, The law of compensation is ever in operation, striving to balance and counterbalance. Hey, Wiz. Callie, you say, yes, ma'am. Yes. And always succeeding in time, even through several lives, may be required for the return swing of the pendulum. Can I say something? One more thing that this is saying. A lot of people, because it said that this law of compensation exists on every plane and through every lifetime. Yes? Come with me. I want you to come with me. So that means I want you to, if you're tracking, say yes. The law of compensation. And it said that pain comes first and the compensation is the pleasure. And this extends through lifetimes. There are some people who say that they lived a bad lifetime previously, so now they have to experience pain in this lifetime to compensate. That doesn't line up with the principle of rhythm and compensation. Because if it did, you would be saying, I lived a bad lifetime, and the reason I'm experiencing such joy, and the reason I am overcoming and transcending is because I experienced so much pain previously. So when you say this is karma, punishment for how I lived before, and I hear spiritual people all over saying this, the principle of rhythm just said that's not the case. Something to think about. But if you're attached to the other thought, that's okay. I'm just giving you a universal principle that operates on all planes, even the plane of reincarnation. We have this punishment mindset. And I don't know where it started. Some people say it started during the times of our enslaved ancestors. Hey, I don't know if it started there, but I know it's in us. And it's in the interpretations of the Manomaya. I must be suffering because of something bad I did. I must be suffering, and even the question comes up. What did I do to deserve this? You see how ingrained it is? What did I do that was so bad that I can't keep something good? You're not accounting for the fact that you don't vibrate on that frequency, and that's why you couldn't keep it. You're trying to find out why you're being punished, why your ancestors are beating up on you, why spirit guides are beating up on you, why God is testing you to see if you're still stupid. People say, I've heard all of this in Christianity and outside of it. I hear it in spiritual communities, and I really want to talk about it, but I know, I can tell that with fervor, they're attached to it, and they got to see it that way. I think it's a fetish and a kink. I said that before, and I really think it. You need to feel punished because you do not have grace for yourself. So you punish yourself, and you call it the divine punishing you. You call it your ancestors beating up on you. You beat up on yourself. You have so much apathy, so much shame, so much guilt. Remember where we found shame and guilt on the map of consciousness? Do I need to show you again? So if your ancestors are shaming you and guilting you by punishing you, they must be low vibration too. And if they are also low vibration too, and you're staying on the low vibration with them, how are you ascending? Punishment, even on the physical plane. Punishment is not the way that we transcend. We transcend because we want it, because we choose it, because the light in us activates and compels us forward. But you're so used to being whipped as a child. You're so used to being punished. Then you got indoctrinated by the God of the Bible, who is punishment oriented. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. And you don't even understand how that has penetrated your psyche and causes you to dwell in a low vibration. Somebody still is listening to this and it sounds like gibberish to them because it's on a frequency that they're not used to. And there's some resistance. My ancestors do be beating up on me. What you saying? I like it. Don't you tell me they're not beating up on me. Because I'm in denial about how I beat up on myself, how I am in low self-acceptance. I want to blame it on the ancestors. I like that. I like the feeling of my ancestors scowling at me as I do the wrong thing. That means love. Beating up on me means love. What does that sound like? They watching you hurt yourself and make bad decisions so you can repent. Slavery. And this is coming from the mouths of the awakened. I'm giving you another frequency. I'm giving you another rate of vibration. You get to choose it. So if you still see things from that frequency, that's okay. Just realize where it's at. Can I show you where it's at? Do I need to show you, or do you remember on the scale of consciousness? Because I can't let you think that you're transcending while you're holding that low vibration and you like it. And if you just say you like it, then cool. It's low. And that's not shame, that's truth. So you can locate yourself. And I'm giving you tools to raise yourself. So even though you're still in Manomaya and we have to still dwell in Manomaya, I'm giving you the tools to come from down here to up here so you're closer to your wisdom sheath. It's information. Your ego will tell you she's judging you. She thinks she's more than you. She's sitting up there preaching like she don't do. That's your ego is trying to block you from coming up in your vibration. Your ego will tell you she talking about me. I am. But not individually. I'm talking to all of us who are part of this collective mind, even myself. The ego will tell you all kind of stories to keep you in shame and guilt, not because the ego has a will, but because the ego is limited. It's a limited plane. And it cannot rise above itself. Your will is superior to it. Your inner spark is superior to it. But the ego in and of itself, it cannot raise itself. It won't. So if you let your ego tell you stories that keep you in shame, hey, Victory, that keep you in guilt, that keep you in pride, that keep you in all of these things, then you can't make it to courage because your ego is not about courage. It doesn't even vibrate there. It doesn't need courage. Your courage comes from within. Your courage comes from your native frequency. And as soon as you stop allowing your ego to lead you, your native frequency can come up and you can say, I am the same consciousness as the all, having an experience in matter, the frequency of matter. but I'm also the divine consciousness. I'm also that frequency. And the more I allow the frequency of the divine to radiate, to permeate all of my thoughts, all of my belief systems, all of my interpretations and approaches, the more I do that, the more embodied I become, the more powerful and empowered, I should say, I become. So I gotta give you some of these things that are not true, and I gotta give you absolute truth because I'm here to enlighten. That's part of my mission. And I don't enlighten you without enlightening myself. It's a practice. Thank you. The enlightenment. So you get to choose ye this day. And I'm here for it. Right? I'm here for it. I'm the vessel and you get to receive. Ashe. So we're going to come back tomorrow and let's look. Ooh, the next one is the principle of causation, cause and effect. We need that too. We need to go beyond the realm of the mental plane. That's the realm of the ego. That's the realm of the intellect. That's the realm of knowledge. All throughout this teaching, it says, but the hermetist takes this farther and go beyond that. So we're beyond psychology. We're beyond shadow work. We're beyond inner child work. Am I saying you don't need that? No, I said we're going beyond it in this teaching because I'm trying to show you that the expansive nature that healing can provide. If you stay in inner child work, soothing an inner child, ministering to an inner child, governing yourself by the inner child, then you're going to stay in that loop. The inner child energy must mature. And we must begin to spend more time on our divine consciousness. How is it that, how do you think that the collective wants to do just shadow work, shadow work, shadow work? I'm doing my shadow work. I'm in my inner child healing. I'm manifesting. They talk about the same three things all the time. How to manifest what you want. Not how to shift so that you be on the frequency of the plane of existence where that thing exists. It's not mental transmutation. The collective dwells on the realm of your feelings are valid. Your feelings are valid. Be accountable. Your feelings are valid. If they can't be accountable, you don't need them. I'm not saying that's not important. I'm saying there's more than just that to talk about. There's more than just that to experience. There's more than just that to become. The collective talks about boundaries, 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 boundaries. We need boundaries. We need them. But eventually, you're called to vibrate on a level where there's a natural boundary, where people down here, they don't even perceive you, and you don't even perceive them like that. That's transcendence. Not stay there and tussle with them, not tussle only on the inside, but don't let them see you sweat. No, transcendence is, I don't even vibrate on that frequency, so I can't even hear it all the way. I see it. I know it's there. I know it's a vibration, but it's not the tuning fork that tunes me. Ashe, are y'all activated tonight? On a lower frequency, what I'm saying sounds like rubbish. What is she talking about? My feelings are valid. Oh, she's saying inner child work is not necessary. We need the ego. She's talking about annihilating the ego. Like that's what this sounds like to a lower level. She wants people to be like her. She has a cult. She wants to. No, I'm leading you back to yourself. Never once did I lead you to me, except the coaching. And in coaching, I lead you back to yourself. If I were a cult leader, I would be telling you that the authority is outside of you and you need to come to me in order to get it. That you don't have it yourself. That you can't get it yourself. I would not be giving you tools of manifestation of yourself. But the ego tells people such things. She's arrogant. Block her. Can't you hear the voices, the frequencies? Block that. You're romantically attracted to her, but she doesn't like you. Block her. That happens all the time. I made a post about it today where I go to respond and it's user not found. And I just be like, Ashe, it happens. The ego will, let me not say it like that because that sounds like the ego is doing it on purpose. The ego is a block. It blocks, not because it's bad, but because it can't pick up the vibration. Think about your eyes. Your eyes are not bad. Okay. And when I say bad, I don't mean that you have 20/20 vision. What I'm saying is there are things in the atmosphere that you can't see. That doesn't mean your eyes are bad. It means they don't pick up the frequency. In the same way, your ego is not bad. It just cannot pick up higher frequencies. So you have to let your inner self, the true inner self, not the ego, not the suspicion, not the conditioning. So you got to learn how to peel that away. And that's why I do these teachings. So you can feel from within rather than try to know. Knowing intellectually does not lead to change. Ingesting it, transmuting it, alchemizing it, practicing it, seeing through the lens of it, hearing through the filter of it, speaking through the interpretation of it. That's what we're after. We're not here to look intelligible and say, yes, I know the principle of causation. Are you the principle of causation? Is it flowing through you consciously? Because we know there's unconscious realms where it's going to flow no matter what. But is it in your consciousness? Ashe? So I'm trying to tell you how this works. So when the ego starts acting up, you can recognize what it is. And I think I'm done. Ashe, was there at least one thing that you can put into practice when you get off the screen? Was there at least one thing? I'm not asking you to jump from here to here. I'm asking you to go from here to here to here to here to here to here. Every time I talk about this, I get more enlightenment. Every time. So I don't understand how I can read something like this and someone sits there unchanged, except that the ego blocks it. The ego says, you know that already. You heard that already. I want to hear something new. I want to hear new words so I can use them. I want to be more like XYZ. So give me some new information. That's the ego. I read the Kybalion already. Here she go talking about the Kybalion. She read that so many times throughout the years. I'm keep reading it. Every round goes higher and higher, deeper and deeper, wider and wider. Yes, and I'm going to read it again. And the proof that you need to hear it again is when I ask you questions that you can't answer. It has not even went into your intellect yet. But your ego will say, I know that. I heard that. She was talking about that last night. But you can't even regurgitate it. Step one is to take it into your intellect. Step two is to practice it. Step three, through practicing, you become the living word. I say. All right, that's it, because I'll go on and on and on. I appreciate y'all. Listen, a few things. If you've ever wanted to get trained as a life coach, I just launched my life coach training. I do so every couple of years, maybe every 3 years so far. If you want to take it, it's self-studied and also live trainings. Okay, you can let me know. It's not too late to join. I teach you principles of life coaching, psychological concepts and dynamics. I teach you how to run a coaching session from start to finish efficiently. And I also equip you to coach your own self so that you're not just learning life coach principles, you're being transformed. Okay, so that's available still. Just let me know. You can sign up for coaching on my website if you need emotional wellness coaching, relationship coaching, self-development coaching. You can reach me on my website at veronicamarie.com. If you want to hear the other teachings that I've done earlier this week, you can go to YouTube at Coach Veronica Marie. It's there. I have my private community where we have courses that are free and paid. We also have just beautiful discussions. We hop on the phone, we hop on Zoom, and we chat. It's called The Path of Ascension. It's for ascension-minded individuals. So if you have longed for conversations like this, because you don't have it in your world, you want to talk about things like Hermetic principles and astrology and numerology, you want to learn new things, you want to talk about archetypes, you want to talk about kinks and fetishes, you want to whatever. We talk about all the things that have to do with the richness of life. So it's so many things. So you can join there. And I think that's all I have to say right now. Also, I'm a personal trainer. So if you've been trying to get fit, lose weight, burn some body fat, get toned, I offer virtual classes. So you can join that as well. It's worth joining. I agree with that, 64. It's so worth it. It's so lovely. And that's it. So I'm going to see y'all tomorrow, probably late tomorrow because I have a full day. But I'll come back around this time tomorrow. And until then, peace and enjoy your evening. Ashe.